Mar, if you can go to the next slide, please. So we're going to do some welcome and introductions. We're going to provide a brief overview of the Emergency Food and Shelter Program, review of the Phase 41 process, and then the applications. And at the end, we have questions. However, if you have any burning questions throughout the presentation, feel free to raise your hand or type it in the chat. We will be monitoring throughout the presentation. And I see someone has a hand up. I cannot see your name for some reason. Does anyone have a question? It looks, I can't see the person's name. I see your hand raised. Mar, do you see that person's name who has the hand raised?
No, their name is listed as meeting guest.
Oh, okay. The gentleman with the black shirt on. See your picture. And that's a couple of them. So
Nick.
Go ahead.
I think they're having issues with their mic.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like you're talking, but we can't hear you because you're on mute.
Yeah, I just, I'm not able to put in the message, but it's okay. Another one of someone from my organization's in there, so that's fine.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as I was saying, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or you can put it in the chat. Mar, next slide, please. So we're gonna do some introductions. If you guys can do me a favor, we're gonna go down the list. If you can say your name and title, your organization, the number of years, if you have been an EFSP recipient, and the EFSP service category your agency is interested in applying for. So I will go down our list. We have Adrian. Actually, let me do it. Let me change it up a little bit. I'll change it up a little bit. I didn't realize we had so many people on the line. So in the interest of time, if you are an organization that has not received EFSP in any of the phases in Riverside County prior to phase 41, if you can unmute and introduce yourself and put your name and title and let us know your name and title and organization, and then the EFSP category you are interested in applying for. Any new organizations?
Hi, Rashana. This is Susan Larkin. I am representing Bridges to Hope out in the Coachella Valley. They will be a new applicant, and they are considering applying for prepared meals, served meals, and possibly rental assistance or hotel motel vouchers.
Perfect. Thank you, Susan. And it's always good to hear your voice.
Nice to see you too.
Thank you. Any other new organizations? No? Okay, well, since we don't have any new organizations, it seems like it may be just new individuals within the organizations that have already been awarded in any of the previous phases. Welcome again. Thank you. So, Mara, if you can go to the next slide. So overview of the EFSP. What is EFSP? It's the Emergency Food and Shelter Program. It's a federal program and it's administered by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Federal Emergency Management Agency. The Emergency Food and Shelter Program was authorized in 1983 under the Stewart B. McKinney Homeless Assistance Act, since renamed the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. The EFSP was created to supplement and expand the work of local social services providers, both nonprofit and governmental, in an effort to help people with economic emergencies. I want to stress that the EFSP program is a supplemental program, and it exists to expand the work that's already being done. And I'll tell you why I stress the supplement a little further on in the presentation. Applicants must not regard EFSP funding as part of their annual operational funding base, but as a supplemental funding to meet specific emergency needs. Next slide, please. So there is a chain of responsibility. So we have FEMA, we have the national board, then we have the local board, and then we have you all, which is the local recipient organizations, otherwise known as the LR. The organizations are considered LROs, local recipient organizations. So FEMA receives the funding from Congress, and then we have the national board that makes the policy decisions. And the national board makes up FEMA, American Red Cross, Catholic Charities, National Council of Churches, the Jewish Federation of North America, Salvation Army, and United Way. And they make policy, they make the policy decisions, set the program parameters, and they also select the jurisdiction to receive the funding. Also, the national board, it's important to note that the national board disperses the funding directly to the agencies. So Housing and Workforce Solution is only the EFSP local board contact. The funding will not go through Housing and Workforce Solutions. However, you will receive the funding directly from FEMA. Then we have our local board. And that local board, the local board advertises the availability of funds, oversees the competitive selection process, determines the amount for each of the allocations, and then make the local policy decision and set program parameters. And then we have the local recipient organization. Local recipient organizations, they directly provide the direct services to the people who are in need. And they use the funds to supplement and expand its existing food and shelter services. Next slide, please. So the County of Riverside's local board consists of Catholic Charities, City of Riverside, CAP, which is Community Action Partnership, Feeding America, Find Food Bank. We have, there is a homeless representative seat on the local board, Riverside County Housing Authority, Riverside County Veteran Services, Behavioral Health, Salvation Army, United Way of Inland Valleys, Valley Restart, and the United Church of Christ. Those are the organizations that are part of our local board. Next slide, please. So back in, I believe, November or August, our local board set the funding priorities for our jurisdiction, and the funding priorities was 55% shelter, 35% food, and which was newly added from phase ARPA-R, a previous phase, was the utility assistance allowance, which is set at 10%. And that was something new that was added by the local board because the need was there. Next slide, please. Next slide. So review of the application project, process. For phase 41, we do not have our allocations for phase 41 as of yet. However, we want to get ahead of the game and put this out so that we can have our competitive process. And once we receive our Riverside County's allocation, we'll go ahead and set those local allocations based upon the formula that the local board has approved. And I see a hand, Susan.
Yeah, okay, so, is there any way we can, assume that the spending period will be at least 12 months? It's really hard to estimate what you're gonna need and use without knowing that, okay, let's say it'll be at least 12 months. I know EFSP could be 12, 16, 24, who knows? But it would be reasonable to assume it would be 12 months or more?
Yes, it is reasonable to assume that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. And they haven't, the national board, we just made a phone call last week and they didn't have much information to provide to me, even with the spending period, because they, in December, like mid-December, they just approved for the previous phases 39, phase 40, and ARPA R to extend their spending periods, which was already extended until December 31st. So it's kind of hard to just distinguish if they're going to what the ending period for phase 41 is going to be. But yes, please assume that it is going to be at least 12 months. Prior to COVID, the phases have been 12 months. Any other questions? That was a great question. Next slide, please. So eligibility, all agencies providing emergency food and shelter services for at least 1 year in Riverside County can apply for funding. And the categories you saw previous was shelter, food, and metered utility assistance and metered utility assistance. The Riverside County is separated into 5 supervisory districts, and that's how the funding is allocated based on the 5 districts. Applicants must complete the required parts. The cover page, all applicants must complete the cover page. All applicants must complete part A, which is the applicant information. All applicants must complete part B, which is the funding request. And then only the new applicants, and those are organizations that have not received funding in the phases prior to 39 ARPA R and 40. Only because those are the final reports for those have not been completed. So if you have received funding in the prior phases, if you have not received funding in the prior phases, then you are still considered a new applicant. And then Part D, all new applicants need to complete Part D. Any questions regarding that? Next slide. And to be quite, the criteria for a LRO has to be a nonprofit or agency of government, not debarred or suspended from receiving federal funding, must have a checking account and sign up for EFT transfers. The national board does not cut paper checks anymore, so you must have a checking account to sign up for an electronic funds transfer. Have an accounting system, have an FEIN number, have a UEI number, and that's unique entity identifier, have a valid email, conduct annual audits, be providing services and using its other resources in the area in which they are seeking funding, practice non-discrimination, have a voluntary board, and to the extent practical, we do like to see those who involve homeless individuals as part of their programs or boards. Next slide. Eligible activities under those three categories is mass shelter, which is those congregate shelters, other shelters, which is hotel, motel vouchers, non-congregate, rent and mortgage assistance, served meals, other food, which is like food banks, food pantries, food vouchers, metered utility assistance, metered utility assistance such as gas, electricity, water, and sewer. And then the last eligible activity is the administrative costs, which in parentheses, you see local board contact only. LROs are not eligible for the administrative costs because the local board contact is taking the only 2% of the admin cost of the local jurisdiction's allocation. So that's just on there for transparency. Next slide, please. So for if you are a new applicant, then the minimum request is 5,000. The maximum you can request per supervisorial district is 20,000. And then for returning applicants, the minimum is 5 and the maximum is 50. So if you're a returning applicant only, the maximum request per supervisorial district is 50,000. Any questions regarding that? No.
Hi, Roshana. This is Ginger with Legacy Shelters. It's nice to finally see your face. I just had a quick question in regards to applying for an area that we had not received funding for last year. So we are a returning applicant, but we did not apply for rental assistance last year. Are we able to include that in our application this year, or do we need to submit a new application since it's a new area that we would be applying for?
So did you receive funding in any of the phases?
Yes, we did.
In which phase?
40.
Okay. So you will receive, you would have to do you said you didn't apply for rental assistance in the past.
Correct. We applied for the food pantry assistance and also for the served meals. And we did receive grants for that in phase 40, but we would like to apply for rental assistance also in phase 41.
So because you received, you got your funding in phase 40, you are considered a new applicant still, because you haven't completed the first round of the phase 40. Phase 40's final reports have not been received yet.
Really? Okay. That's something I got to look into then. Okay, thank you.
I believe I replied to your email, so just double check the definitions of new and returning applicant.
Will do. Thank you.
No problem. Are there any other questions, or was that Ginger's hand? I can only see the hand.
Hi there. Yes, it's me. My name is Brandy. I'm from Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Redlands, Riverside. Thank you so much for providing this webinar. This is amazing. This is my first time applying for this. However, our organization has applied for many years. I just have one really quick question. If we do apply for the maximum amount, and we, of course, want to utilize all of that funding, but we do not, is it a mark against us if we have to return funding, just in case, because I always shoot for the moon and I want to reach as many youth and families as we can, but I also want to make sure that I'm being respectful and not asking for too much. And if it's okay to simply say, hey, this is all we needed, can we please provide you with the rest?
So, yes, that is part of the scoring for the applications. If you have to return, and I should know this off the top of my head, more than a certain percentage, if you have to return more than a certain percentage of your allocation, it is a mark against your new application, your next application.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that information.
And if you can reach out to me after the call, I have a question regarding your agency.
Absolutely, will do. Really quick question, would you like me to reach out to you through email, or is your information up here? I apologize. I was having some technical difficulties, so I don't know if your information was already up on the screen.
It'll be on the last last or second to last slide.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
No problem. Any other questions regarding the minimum and maximum request?
Rochelle, this is Susan.
Hey, Susan.
It's if you return 25%.
25%. Okay, thank you.
25.
I knew there was a percentage, and I should know it off the top of my head, but got a lot going on right now, so I don't know.
Page 10 of the proposal.
Thank you. Thank you. But now going back to that question, we would love, if you are not going to spend a portion of your allocation, we would love to know sooner rather than later, because we can reallocate the funding, but we rather not. So I do want to say that. Next slide, please. Thank you, Susan. So application standard, all proposals must be submitted in accordance to the RFA. Housing and Workforce Solutions shall not pay any costs incurred or associated with the preparation of your application. Project applications and an attachment should be divided into 4 parts when you are emailing it. And no, we don't accept any handwritten copies, only because a lot of times it's hard to read. So if you can make sure that the project applications are typed. Submit 1 application that includes those 4 parts in an email to efsp@rivco.org. And if you are a new organization, the narrative is, which is part D, is limited to a maximum of 10 pages, which that includes the questions. And new agencies, which we went over before, must submit all required documentation. Agency may withdraw their proposals at any time prior to the due date and time by submitting notification of withdrawal signed by the organization's authorized agent. Any questions regarding that? And once the applications are submitted, anytime after that, once they're submitted and after that due date, no modifications can be made to your proposal. Next slide, please. Scoring process. For new organizations will only be scored. The applications will only be scored. Those returning applications, those applications will not be scored. They will keep the score of their previous application, only because the board decided to make it easier for those organizations, because they have a track record. So we want to make it easier for those organizations who continuously funded through EFSP, which a lot of the information has not changed. So the scoring and evaluation will be done for the new organizations. Prior to the scoring from the review panel, there is a threshold review, and that threshold review will be conducted internally. And then organizations that had funds reallocated, it is on here. So the local board mandate and return funds to national as a result of gross negligence, inadequate use of funds, failure to use funds for purposes intended, and other violations of national and local board guidelines for phase. The previous phases, phase 39, 40, and ARPA-R are not eligible to apply. And organizations that reallocated 25% or more of their allocations to another LRO and will not be eligible to apply for this phase. And then the scoring deductions, 10 points will be deducted from the total score for LROs that did not turn in required reports or documentation from previous phases by the due date identified by the national or local board. So those previous phases are phase 30, are phases, 37, 38, and CARES, because the 39, 40, and ARPA-R have not been, there's no due date for those as of yet. Next slide, please. So all applications that receive a score of 70 or above will be considered for funding. And funding and ranking is determined by application score and region. As I said prior, those regions are the 5 supervisorial districts. The threshold review I went over, that's an internal review of the compliance of the requirements of the RFA, including timeliness, completeness, and submission of attachments. Review committee will be reviewing and scoring those applications, and that is for the new applicants. Next slide, please. So there's a cover page that all applicants must complete. Part A is the applicant's information. Part B is the funding request, which all applicants need to submit. Part C and D is only for new applicants. The Part C is the required documents or the attachments. And then Part D is the narrative. Part D is the part that will be scored by the independent review panel. And that Part C and D is for new applicants only, those who were either newly awarded in phases 39, 40, and ARPA-R. They are considered new applicants, as well as any of the any application or any organizations who are not ever awarded emergency food and shelter funding. Any questions? Next slide. You guys are making it too easy for me. This is going to be over in no time. So Part B, this is a sample of how to complete the funding request. And it's kind of explanatory. So this is just a sample of how to complete Part B. And again, I put the note of the minimum request and the maximum request based on if you're a new or returning agency. And again, thank you, Mar, for putting it in there. The meeting is being recorded and the slides will be posted on our website. So if you need to go back and look at this slide, this sample, it will be available. Next slide. Again, this is the example or the sample of how the Part B is to be completed. And this is all part of Part B, which is the funding request. Now, this is if you can go back one slide. So part B, you have to show the match because EFSP is a supplemental only program. EFSP, the funding request should only should be at least 45% of of your total program budget. So on this part of the application, you have to show your the match where you plan to make up the 55% of your program budget. And this is a sample of how to show that. Next slide, please. And this is the match example. So if you are doing food distribution in District 4 and 5, and your program budget is 180,000, you need to show the 55% match. Like, where are you getting your 55% from? So, and then your EFSP request is going to be 45% of the total program budget. Does that make sense? This is the slide where I get the most questions. Okay, oh, good. I see the thumbs up. I see it. Again, match is only, the EFSP is only 45, should only be 45% of your total budget. And I like stressing that because during the years I hear, I get questions and I always go back to, well, EFSP is only a supplemental to your current budget. So I thought I saw a hand. Maybe not. If I did, just if you have a question, just interrupt me. Next slide. Oh, Ruby?
Yeah, hi, this is Ruby with Lutheran Social Services. Quick question. So if the total budget is 180,000 and 45% of 180,000 is it 81,000 that we are able to request for?
40,000.
40,000? So the match has to be, we have to show.
99.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Good question. That I get that. That's a common question. Any other questions? Next slide. For new organizations, we have some required documentation. The required documentation is the determining factor whether you pass the threshold. And if applicants are missing any attachments, your application will not be scored. And applications that don't pass the threshold will not be scored. So make sure that for new organizations, we have to have the required documentation and attachments along with your applications. Next slide. And these are the mandatory attachments. Of course, and it should not be new. These are pretty much documentations that a lot of federal funding require. So if you have any questions regarding any of the required documentation on our list, feel free to reach out to efsp@rifcope.org. Next slide, please. And this is just a sample of the site for you to check your entity status. And it's because your entity cannot be on the excluded parties list to receive federal funding. So we just took a snapshot of the actual website to go on to check your status. Next slide. So for Part D, the application narrative, and this is for the new applicants. Every question must receive a response. Each application will be read and scored by at least 2 to 3 evaluators. And again, all applications that receive a score of 70 or higher will be considered for funding. And any questions at this point? And I do have our email address on the slide here. Deadline to submit your questions for this request for application is January 31st. After January 31st, we are not able to answer any questions regarding the application, but we will post any question that we receive to our website just in case any other organization may have that same question but didn't get a chance to ask.
Happy New Year, Roshana. This is Mark Davis with Salvation Army.
Happy New Year.
Will this PowerPoint slide be available to the group?
Absolutely. We will post this slideshow as well as the recording to our website. And the website, it's on the slide that we have here, but it's also our website is also posted with the RFA, because that's where you can also go to get the application. I do know that we did have a request from someone, which the reason why we submitted a correction, we were able to fix the project application to make it fillable. If you have if you need any assistance with that, just feel free to reach out to efsp@rifco.org. But we made the PDF a fillable form. If you have any questions with that, just let us know. And we will help you, we will assist you. Any other questions? Next slide.
There's a question in the chat, Roshana. It's from Craig. He says, we received phase 38, 39, and ARPA R. Are we considered new applicants?
So phase 38, if you receive phase 38, you are a returning applicant because you have completed the final report for phase 38 already. What agency are you with, Craig? If you can put it in the chat. Got it. Yeah, you are a returning applicant. You have received actually in more phases than those three, but you are considered a returning applicant. Any other questions? Craig, if you can send us an email too, because we don't have your information. We just want to make sure you're the correct contact for Feeding America. If not, just send us an email and make sure. I think it was Carolyn that we have as your contact. So if it's still Carolyn, just feel free just to email us and say it's still Carolyn. I know prior to Carolyn, it was someone else. So we just want to make sure that we stay updated on our contacts. Thank you. Any other questions? Mara, is there another slide?
Yes, but I believe it's just like the thing, the timeline.
Got it. The
And then a
timeline.
thank you. Mhm.
That's the one that I was hoping we still had on here.
Mhm.
So as stated before, the question and answer period ends January 31st. The deadlines to submit the application will be 5 p.m. on February 7th. Wednesday, February 7th, 2024, the deadline to submit applications by 5 p.m. Any questions? We have a quiet group today. If you have any questions after this meeting, feel free to reach out at efsp@rivco.org, and we will get back to you. We will have those questions and answers posted to our website after January 31st.
Hi, Rashawn, this is Kimberly. After the meeting, can you give me a call? I have some news.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you. If there are no other questions, we would like to thank you for attending our EFSP Phase 41 Technical Assistance Training. You can go back, Mar. Just want to point out that we did put some references on this presentation. So if you ever have any questions, the answers may be in those references. However, you can still feel free to reach out at efsp@rivco.org if you have any other questions that you don't find the answers to within these references. With that being said, thank you. Oh, wait, Craig. No? Well, with that being said, thank you and good luck. I look forward to seeing all of your applications. Thank you so much. Again, reach out if you have any questions. Thank you. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.